All right, so today we're diving deep into a World War II mystery that might have you scratching your head. Operation Tannenbaum.
Tannenbaum.
Yeah, it was the Nazi plan to invade Switzerland.
Switzerland.
I know, right?
Ah.
Neutral Switzerland. You'd think they'd be safe. But Hitler, well, he had other ideas.
Fascinating. So are we talking about a full-blown invasion plan or just some, hypothetical wargaming scenario?
Oh no, this was the real deal. Declassified documents, historical accounts, the whole 9 yards. We're actually pulling from Wikipedia's page on Operation Tannenbaum. Crazy, right?
I mean, everyone knows Hitler had some, let's say, strong opinions about pretty much everyone.
Oh yeah, we've got some chilling quotes from him about the Swiss. Stuff like Switzerland possessed the most disgusting and miserable people and political system.
Yikes. Not exactly a glowing endorsement. So I guess the big question is, why didn't he just go ahead with it? What stopped him?
Exactly. That's the mystery we're going to try to unpack today. Why invade France, Poland, all these other countries, but hold back on Switzerland?
Well, to understand that, we have to understand the Nazi perspective. Switzerland, with its democracy, was like a thorn in their side.
A thorn in their side. How so?
They saw the Swiss Germans as a part of the greater German Reich that had, gone astray, a rebellious offshoot. They thought they should be part of the Reich.
Okay, so they thought Switzerland was, ideologically impure or something.
Basically, yeah. And remember, the Nazis were masters of manipulation. They publicly promised to respect Swiss neutrality.
While secretly plotting to take them over.
Exactly. It was a tactic to keep Switzerland pacified, maybe even a little naive, while the Nazis geared up.
But hold on, the Swiss weren't exactly pushovers. Didn't they mobilize pretty quickly when things started heating up?
Oh, absolutely. They weren't messing around. Think about it. Army units were in position within 10 minutes of Britain's declaration of war. They weren't taking any chances.
10 minutes. Wow, that's impressive. They really had their act together.
They even raised the service age to 60. Everyone was ready to defend their country. It was all hands on deck.
And what about this Red Wheat National Plan? I've heard a little about it, but it sounds kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah, that was their, fallback plan. If the Germans invaded, they were going to retreat into the Alps.
Basically turning the mountains into their fortress.
Right. Imagine trying to fight a war in those conditions. It would have been brutal. A logistical nightmare.
So even if Hitler had invaded, it wouldn't have been a walk in the park.
Not at all. The Swiss were prepared to make him pay for every inch of ground. They had the terrain on their side, and they were ready to fight.
So they're ready. Hitler's itching to go. And then June 25th, 1940, the day France falls, Operation Tannenbaum kicks off.
Yeah, the pressure was on. Germany had a huge force ready, 11 divisions, with the possibility of 15 Italian divisions joining in.
Whoa, we're talking about a serious amount of firepower.
You gotta remember, Germany had 2 million soldiers and 102 divisions stationed in France alone. It was a massive concentration of military might.
So the threat was real, the plan was in motion.
Hitler hesitates. He never gives the final order.
That's where the mystery really starts.
Right, exactly. It's a puzzle that historians are still trying to piece together.
We're going to dive into those pieces when we come back. All right, so we left off with Hitler holding back on Operation Tannenbaum. Got the troops, got the plan, but no invasion. Why?
Yeah, it's a head-scratcher for sure. Historians have come up with a few theories, but nothing definitive. It's a real puzzle.
So what do we think of? What's the most popular theory?
Well, one thought is Switzerland's role in the financial world. They weren't just sitting there yodeling in the mountains.
I mean, I knew they had banks and stuff, but how does that tie into Hitler's decision?
Think of it this way. Switzerland was a key player in the Nazis', well, let's just say financial operations.
You mean like money laundering and all that shady stuff?
It wasn't exactly a secret that the Swiss banks handled a lot of sensitive transactions. Gold, loans, even stuff booted in Germany.
So Hitler might have seen them as more valuable as a giant offshore bank account than as a conquered territory.
Exactly. Keep in mind, this was a time when information moved a lot slower. Things were a lot more opaque. Who knows what kind of leverage the Swiss had?
Okay, that's pretty cool. But was it just about the money? It seems like there had to be more to it.
Oh, there were definitely other factors at play. Military considerations, for instance.
Right, we talked about those Swiss defenses like the Red Wheat National Plan. They were ready to meet any invasion at night.
Think about it. Hitler had already seen what happened when he underestimated giants in the face of larger powers. Conquering them might have felt, I don't know, almost sacrilegious.
Just like tarnish that image of invincibility that was trying to build.
Exactly. So it was probably a mix of things: a strategic calculation, a logistical concern, maybe even a dash of twisted ideology thrown in.
And the more we dig into this, the more layers there are.
Oh, we're not even done yet. We haven't even touched on the whole espionage and intelligence.
Wait, there's more. This is getting good.
Oh yeah, things are about to get really interesting.
Okay, so we've covered the economics,
Right.
military strategy, even a little bit of Hitler's psychology. What's this about espionage?
Well, it turns out the Swiss weren't just sitting back waiting for an invasion. They were playing their own games in the shadows.
Okay, now you're talking my language. Spy stuff. I'm all ears.
You gotta remember, information was a powerful weapon back then. And the Swiss, they knew how to wield it.
So what, they had like a super secret spy agency? James Bond and the Elves?
Not quite James Bond, but they did have a pretty effective intelligence staff. And they weren't afraid to use it.
Give me an example. What kind of stuff do they do?
Well, one of their tactics was disinformation. Basically, they leaked false information to the Germans.
Like what? Making up stories about having a secret weapon or something?
Sometimes it was more subtle than that. They might leak inflated troop numbers or make it seem like their defenses were stronger than they actually were.
So they were playing mind games with the Nazis, trying to make them think twice about invading.
Exactly. And you gotta remember, Hitler was already dealing with war. Multiple fronts, resistance movements, all that. The last thing he needed was another hit.
Especially one of the Swiss Alps, where the terrain was already a nightmare for any invading army.
Right. So by feeding the Germans this bad intel, the Swiss were basically adding to their existing anxieties, making them question whether an invasion was really worth the trouble.
It's like a real-life game of chess. Every move carefully counted.
And they were good at it. They had agents, double agents, you name it. They even planted rumors in neutral circles, knowing those rumors would eventually find their way back to the Germans.
It's amazing how much of this stuff goes on behind the scenes. Stuff we never hear about in newspapers.
That's the nature of intelligence work. A lot of it remains classified even decades later. But it's clear that the Swiss were masters of the game.
So to wrap this up, it seems like Operation Tannenbaum was a perfect storm of everything. Hitler's ambitions, Switzerland's readiness, their economic ties, their disinformation campaigns.
It's a reminder that history is rarely simple. There are always multiple forces at play, pushing and pulling in different directions. And sometimes the smallest players can have outsized impact.
It also makes you think about the real cost of neutrality. It's not just about sitting on the sidelines. It's about making tough choices, playing the game, and sometimes even getting your hands a little dirty.
And ultimately, it's about survival. The Swiss, they did what they had to do to protect their country, and in the end, it worked.
Well, there you have it. Operation Tannenbaum. A plan that never came to pass, but a story that's full of intrigue, mystery, and maybe even a few lessons for today's world.
Always keep in mind, there's often more to the story than meets the eye. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and you never know what you might uncover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Operation Tannenbaum. We'll see you next time